Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Mel Hauser. I use she, they pronouns. I'm the executive director of All Brains Belong. Welcome to Brain Club. There we go. All right. So tonight, our topic is loneliness and work, and we're exploring how those things are deeply connected for lots of people. In tonight's panel, what you'll hear from is community members reflecting on their experiences with work and what shaped their ideas about work and what they've had to unlearn about how work can, either support or harm our well-being. So we'll get going. So before we begin, closed captioning is enabled. You just have to toggle it on at your end if you'd like to use it. Depending on your version of Zoom, you might see the live transcript closed captioning icon. If not, look for the more ... and choose show subtitles or hide subtitles if you want to turn them off. So if you are new to Brain Club, there might be a couple new folks tonight. Hello, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Brain Club is our weekly community education program for purposes of demonstrating All Brains Belong's approach to neuro-inclusive culture, for purposes of shifting broader awareness to the issues of concern and importance to the neurodivergent community, so that hopefully we promote new ways of thinking and being in the world, and that we all go forth into the rest of our lives and carry it forward, because that's how systems change happens. While we hope that Brain Club is a place where you feel safe and supported right from your very first time, this is not a support group, and it's not a place for medical or mental health advice. It's not the right place to make personal requests or address personalized needs. It's also not a neurodivergent affinity space. Everyone is welcome to come and to learn about what a neuro-inclusive space looks like, and hopefully to think about what you're learning connects to your life. There is no one right way to participate at Brain Club or any of our programs. You can have your video on or off. Even if it's on, we don't expect anything of you. Feel free to walk or move or fidget or stim or eat or take breaks or anything else that needs doing. And during our discussion, you're welcome to participate with mouth words or in the chat or observe, because observation is a valid form of participation always. In addition to affirming all aspects of identity, um, one of the other ways that we keep this to be a safe and experience for everyone is we think about the group's collective needs over that of any one individual. That's my visual support to make sure I can see the chat, which I kind of can. Feel free to use it. All right, speaking of the chat, you're welcome to use the chat while we watch the pre-recorded panel. There'll be a portion of tonight that's pre-recorded. So while the video is playing, you're welcome to ask questions or to comment about the content of the video. You're welcome to validate other people's comments or share how something you hear in the panel is impacting you, or ask questions that our staff can answer. We just ask that if you're going to use the chat, we ask that you use the big box as shown here, as opposed to the reply threads, because then what happens is that the chat starts bouncing up and down, and then I get dizzy and I can't answer the questions. So thank you very much for using the big box. All right, so tonight's presentation will it's more like 30 minutes. We'll run 30 minutes and then we'll do some take home points and wrap up. All right, if it is your first time at Brain Club, it's okay to not understand the flow and just keep coming back. It might take several times to figure it out, and we just invite you to observe and be part of it. Lizzie's going to put in the chat some logistics, frequently asked questions for some of the things that come up when folks are new. Sierra, did you mute me?
I'm so sorry.
It's funny. It's my favorite thing of you being co-host, actually. Um, so we're continuing our conversation of our topic of July, overcoming loneliness from disconnection to belonging. And as I said before, for many people, loneliness and work are very much connected. And so we will hear from folks about those ideas, and hopefully invite us to sort of just reflect on what does it look like for work to actually support us, or to feel supported and fit into our lives in ways that work for our brains, as opposed to being shoved into containers that don't work for us. Thank you, as always, to our Brain Club supporters who make panels like this possible. And so with that, I'm going to introduce our panel because the topic gets introduced in the recording. So thank you to our community panel, Connie Beal, Director of the Working Bridges Program from United Way of Northwest Vermont and Chair of our Board of Directors, as well as Jason Capobianco, a post-secondary transition consultant for the Vermont I team from the Center for Disability and Community Inclusion at UVM, and a member of our Board of Directors. Sarah Knudsen, founder of Purely Human and member of our Community Advisory Board. Sheila Linton, Executive Director of the Root Social Justice Center. Teo Rodas, also representing our Community Advisory Board. And Summer Stelter, owner of Limelight Restoration Services and member of our Professional Advisory Board. And so with that, I'm going to switch windows. Share sound. Make it big. Here we go. We talk about employment a lot here at All Brains Belong. What we know is that autistic and ADHD adults are far more likely to struggle with employment. Depending on what study you read, autistic adults are 2.5 to 8 times more likely to be unemployed or underemployed. 75% of ADHDers experience employment-related challenges. And what we know is that employment and health are related in both directions. What we don't want and what we have far too often is the square peg that is hammered to fit into the round hole. It's like shoving, like society shoves people into containers that do not work. And what happens? You break the peg. When we think about all of the different types of access needs that play out in work, whatever type of employment scenario someone is in or not in, when work does not work, it is often because of unmet access needs. And when we think about all of the different ways that humans are othered in this society, if you are othered for aspects of race or gender, or sexuality or class or any of it, and then that intersects with having your access needs thwarted and your disability or your neurodivergence, we have a lot of people that are left out of a lot of things. What we know is that social inequity plays out and impacts everything. This is a really busy slide, but the concept being that when we think about access to basic needs in society, having access to employment has a really huge impact on all of it. And before we begin talking about relationship with work, I don't think we can talk about relationship with work without talking about class and everything that goes into class and class culture. So class, defined by Kessel and Berkfield in Parenting for Social Justice, one of our favorite books here at Brain Club, with the idea that there is relative social hierarchy, ranking in terms of income, wealth, status, power. Different people have different access to resources. So the combination of access to resources, your relationship to work, whether you're respected, whether you belong, whether you have power to do what needs doing in your life. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the intersectionality of all of the different identity characteristics that also come to impact access to resources. And so these prompts from the team at Think Again Training and Consulting, relationship to work has many things. Why do we work? How do we feel or think we should feel about our work? Maybe the relationship between paid work and other parts of life. The emotional relationship to the economic system being capitalism, and depending on all kinds of factors that you may have a different relationship to the economic system. Maybe what's even been modeled about work for you, even in early childhood when we're laying down our initial beliefs about the world. And I mention again these intersectional factors. So, for the next 20 minutes or so, we are going to hear from some of our community members. What we've done is we've taken perspectives and experiences, we've intermixed them, and I think we'll hear some familiar themes, but also some differences across people's experiences, and then we'll have plenty of time for conversation afterwards. So, David, take it away.
I really think we need to reimagine work.
Wisdom tells you that your value comes from what you produce, which is of course bogus. You know, the more productive you are, the whatever, and like the idea of like work has become so removed from, I don't know, meaning, purpose, identity, and like it doesn't need to be those things, but for some people it is those things, and there's this, you know, tension. So I don't know, for you, I'd love to know, how do you personally define the concept of work?
It's interesting because my definition of work has changed. So I started working when I was 17 at a answering service. And from there, I loved it. I loved talking to people. I liked that I wasn't in front of them. I enjoyed that part. And from there, went into a sales position. And I liked that. It was a little bit harder to like deal with people, but I found that I was really good with computers. I had already taken some computer classes in school, so I really got into technology.
People are like on this path of like, this is your menu of options in your life, and like you pick one of them. Anyway, in an ideal world, how do you enter the workforce?
Entering the workforce, there is, to an extent, a leap. You have to start somewhere.
So the company that I worked for, they sold cell phones. So I had my first cell phone while I was working there. And I did stay in sales for a little while. I even sold cars, but it was hard having that face to face. And I was really horrible at breaking the ice. It was very challenging for me to like talk about interesting things, I guess, for people. And then I would hyper like think about that, and then it would make me even more isolated.
And you're in that process of exploring and reflecting. So finding something that feels like it matches your identity, your needs, your values, but accepting that there will be a level of compromise. I mean, work is work. People work ideally not just for the paycheck, but part of it is because there's a paycheck.
My upbringing, my father was a sales rep, and he worked really, really hard. He didn't have a high school diploma, and he was like a hero to me because he worked so hard for our family. And it wasn't easy because I could see the struggle that he had. And my mother was always like, maybe not quite an executive assistant, but pretty close to that. And she had really good work ethic. That's what I thought I was supposed to do. You know, I thought that I was supposed to find this job and that I would just be really good at it, and, you know, it would be amazing. It was hard.
As kitchens tend to attract multiply marginalized people, because I've been in a lot of kitchens with other trans folks, with other neurodivergent folks, where it's like, okay, so these expectations are built around cis bodies and one neurotype, and my body actually can't be here for 12 hours. Otherwise I start having heart palpitations.
Healthy employment relationship is like all relationships, families, friends, romantic. It should be bi-directional. You should be putting something in, but also getting something back. So as you're exploring different types of work and ways to integrate into the workforce, be careful to not only be assessing yourself, but be assessing the context and how you perform in that context, and also what those employers offer, and how they create fit as well. There's two sides to that, and often it's all too easy to go internal and take all the responsibility. It worked or didn't work because of me, but that's not really how it is.
And then you add on top of that the personal life stressors that can come up. And any of those things, one can have difficulty. I can have difficulty managing, become dysregulated, The hyper focus means that I tend to get and stay distracted from work. Those are all stressors. And then once I get like any of those stressors, that can start to lead that it goes unresolved, can lead to, it really gets me into a vicious cycle of a dysregulation spiral. So I get stressed out, I get anxious, that which leads to mental and physical tension. I go into defensive behaviors, worry, self-protective avoidance, distraction. There's dysregulation, including sleep, which leads to less capacity for attention, less capacity for motor skills and motor planning, less executive functioning, which then can lead to more and bigger mistakes, hyperfocus, getting stuck on the wrong details, self-justification, externalizing blame, attacking perceived sources of threat, all of which go over really well in a work environment, leading to more negative feedback, possible discipline, job loss, bad reviews that limit my potential to advance and my potential for access to organizational power and privilege that could actually help me fix the problems that are affecting me.
The idea of shifting social norms through community connection with this vision of like, what like, can I rethink some things in my life that aren't working for me or maybe are working for me, and can I learn about my access needs in that way?
It was really hard for me to get into that social place of like knowing how to interact with people in the office, and then also how to break away and do my job if I was having trouble. I'm very good with routine. So, you give me a spreadsheet or a Word document, like I know how to write a letter. I'm very good with grammar. But if it was out of that wheelhouse, that would be a lot more challenging for me. And that's when I started to notice a lot more. I mean, I had already noticed differences growing up, but I didn't really like what I was doing.
When we think about work in terms of like meaningful occupation, often like the meaningfulness of that is kind of left out.
I think the most important thing is to build that framework of assessing and reflecting. I think I like these things. I think these are important characteristics. I think this is my identity. And then exploring it and reflecting on how you responded, but not holding yourself to a very specific definition of who you are or what your identity is or what's important, because that will change over time. So it's more about having that framework to explore it than it is to identify yourself. And it'll continue to change throughout adulthood. So it's about having a structure to reflect and assess and explore more so than it is like figuring it out. Because just as you figure it out, we are people and we are dynamic and we change.
And at a young age, I realized, well, we're working because we have to, so that we live this life, so that we have cars, we can buy clothes, we can have a house. Because that's all I was thinking. Like, I'm supposed to, make this so much money at whatever age. I'm supposed to have children at this age, and I'm supposed to have a house. Like, there's this timeline that I'm supposed to follow. And it was very challenging for me. And I would always be like, why? Why do I have to do this? And it's not working for me. Like, what is supposed to happen isn't happening. And I would tell people, I'm like, we're working because we have to, but if we didn't have to, would we be working?
How do you define work? What does work mean to you? Like, this starts so much earlier than entering the workforce.
An important consideration for work that is often overlooked is how it matches a person's individual values. And that can happen in a lot of ways. You can directly approach a value, like I like helping other people and work in human services. But I think sometimes we fall short at expanding that definition. If you like helping people, you can also work in retail or in customer service. So overlaying what your values are with what the job is and how it feels and operates practically. So part of that is assessing your values, and those will change over time, and there's no right and wrong values necessarily. So there's a level of self-understanding in that exploration. And I use exploration intentionally because work can be a way to explore those values or how to tap into them.
I think it's very often we talk about like like what we do like for work rather than who we are and the gifts we have to offer to our communities. So being able to share our gifts, sometimes our gifts might be tied to the work that we do, but sometimes our gifts are not tied. We could be artists, we can be other things in our lives that often don't get to be shared in our workplace or in our communities.
I think people don't realize that maybe they're really good at doing something, right? But they don't enjoy it. But it's what they do, and they're getting money doing this. But at the end of the day, they're just like, that wasn't a fulfilling day.
I could see really drilling into what are the benefits of workplaces and the benefits of being a worker, and who are those benefits for and who are they not for? Like, how are things by design right now either working or not working? Where are those gaps in our in the safety nets that support workers or that could support everyone? But I this is where I start to think about, we talk about benefit cliffs, we talk about the sort of that increasing space where workers are earning more but not having safety nets that keep pace, and therefore in an unintended consequence of actually taking people out of work, right? The idea of
Right.
like, we want people to be in the workplace, but if they don't have the supports they need for stability in their housing and stability in their healthcare, they will only work so much or they can't keep working, and they will
Yep.
come back out because that's how they get their basic needs met and the resources they rely on. And that's a stuck place for a lot of people who would like to be unstuck.
A lot of people work in areas that tend toward exploitation and dehumanization. And some of those folks are like, I'm just doing this until like I make it in a creative field. I'm just doing this until I am finished with this certification that's going to let me do this job that I really care about. And some people are like, I've been forced to do this because of racism, because of classism and discrimination in hiring practices, so on and so forth. And some of us are there because we want to be, and because we think that it's important that people do those jobs, and that whether you are working a job that tends towards exploitation and dehumanization, or you in your day-to-day life are profiting from other people working those jobs, whether it's buying your coffee at a coffee shop that a barista makes, or like going to the grocery store where someone is stocking the shelves. Those are jobs that like are inherently like full of dignity. Like, that work matters on a fundamental level and is important and is noble. And like, even if you want to do it, being treated poorly doing those kinds of jobs can really weigh on you. And like, it's important that you're doing that work, whether you continue to do it or not. You should be proud of it.
We all people to an extent want to contribute something and offer and help in some way. You might want to find a way to meet that psychological need through your work where you can contribute and help others, or you may have robust opportunities outside of work where you don't need to use work to balance that.
Idea of like a person growing up over time, and this idea of like more like a holistic transition that starts way earlier, this path to thriving, right? Like can you talk about that?
For me, thriving, flourishing is the goal, whether it's at work, personally. Honestly, it's about personal flourishing and thriving, and how does work contribute to that? And it can do it in different ways. Is it helping you expand your boundaries or push your horizons, or is it reinforcing a strength in some part of your identity and how you self-identify? Does it give you community? Does it expose you to new community?
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I think a lot of times it's like accidental how your path evolves, like the experiences you have, the people you're around, whether these experiences are affirming. Like, even, I mean, there are people, I mean, let's even think about, transition age youth, right? Like, so this idea of, you make it to middle school and you're like, I don't know, do I even really know what I like? do I know what I like? Do I know what I dislike? Do I know what's even important to me? I don't know, because there's all these social pressures that say conform, conform. And the bigger picture, the bigger like the systems that you are in are explicitly training you to conform and comply. And like that is so counter to this idea of this individualistic thriving, I think.
Often, there are jobs, roles, positions out there that don't name our gifts, but that we have the offer that would be beneficial to our communities. And so we call that opportunity creation, where we take people's gifts and create opportunity for that, for them to maybe possibly make a living out of that thing and be able to thrive.
Tell me, what does that look like? That sounds incredible.
Oh, so I'll give you a really great example, and I mean, I think I can name names. I don't think she would mind at all, but I'll name the names because I think it's an excellent recent example of opportunity creation, which we have many. So Anna is a Latina woman in the state of Vermont who, when we were when we were putting together a BIPOC financial wellness empowerment program, she had some expertise in this area. And so we, along with another individual, Shonda, were able to create a financial 101, 102, 103 financial wellness series for BIPOC people through the vision of the root, but the intellectual property of these individuals, and be able to share that in an affinity space with BIPOC to help lift them up in their financial literacy, wellness, awareness, and education. Through that program, we then created another program that was a BIPOC centered home buyers program, where we prioritized BIPOC people and their partners to being able to have the information, skills, and resources that they need to buy homes. Because if we know the history of BIPOC people trying to own homes, there are still racist policies that are on the books that prevent us from being able to access resources that maybe other people who are not of color can access. So through this, we partnered with Windham and Windsor Housing Trust, one of our local affordable housing agencies here in Southern Vermont. And ultimately, through relationship and through those gifts that Anna held, we were able to hire her for this program. And she was able to develop a full program for her own ideas of what this looked like, through her own trainings, through her own awareness, through her own experiences, and create a curriculum for this home buyers program, with collaboration with the Root, with collaboration from Windsor Housing Trust, where we served over 20 BIPOC households in this programming. This now has turned into, now Anna is employed by Windham and Windsor Housing Trust, and she is starting the BIPOC Financial Empowerment Program that is her own gifts that will carry throughout the state, providing these tools and resources and awareness to primarily our BIPOC communities. And so not only did she get to share her gifts, she got to make connections and relationships, and she got to be paid what she is worth for and valued for who she is. And this is just as one example of many opportunity creations that we've been able to create, specifically prioritizing BIPOC communities.
An incredible story. So you really, it's like it's identifying the strengths of individuals within your community and investing in them. Not only are they serving you're investing in them, they are investing in the community, and you've created, together you've created something that didn't exist before. Do you have any advice for people who are stuck in a workplace culture because they have also been taught, you get a job, you do the thing, so you can do the things, right?
Right.
Advice for people who they know they need freedom, they know they need autonomy, but they don't imagine they could possibly start their own thing.
Right. hope has always been what's driven me. And I have always thought that if there was opportunity, and you might not have it right now, it might not even be tomorrow. The job that I had before we started Limelight Restoration, I decided to be a little different with my resume. And I'm very good with resumes. And it was always like, you know, you put where you worked and then all the stuff that you did. And I'm like, but I do so much more than that. Like I have way more to offer than just office stuff, right? So on my resume, I put that I can run heavy equipment. I drive four-wheelers. Like I put all of my like country girl side on my resume on purpose. It's incorporating so many of my personal interests that I like. So what I have to say with where people are maybe feeling stuck and they're unhappy because they're doing the thing that they think they're good at and that's all they're good at. What do you do when you're not at work? What could you put on your resume? Because those are skills. You don't have to have a job that says you can do this. If you're a great seamstress or you're good at, you know, marketing stuff and making things, I think that there's a different way at looking at jobs that you may have not thought you were qualified for if you look at it as an overall picture of what you can provide. When I have gone for interviews in the past, when I was younger, it was so intimidating and scary. As I got older, I learned that they're interviewing me for the job, but I'm also interviewing them because I don't know if I want to work here. I've been let go before. I have had people not like me stand up for myself, and I didn't want to work for a company where I didn't have a voice because I have a lot to say. And I think that people should not be afraid to tell their employer what they need or that they're sick or that they can't come in.
We're caught in systems that we prop up that we have to navigate and cobble together, and we think the system is bigger than us, but it's us. Like we are the ones that have a role in this, and we can disrupt it.
Yes. And I think like, you know, like we were talking about this morning with like email, like all the chaos that comes in, right? Like, so you have to be able to have the spaciousness to zoom out, to reimagine. And when you're like in the weeds, in the chaos, you can't even do that. So you like stick to the systems because it preserves your bandwidth, even though that known quantity is ruining your life. Right. So I don't know what my access needs are necessarily, but I'm in situations that either work for me or they don't work for me. And when they don't work for me, when someone, for example, has this frame of access, my access needs were not met. It's not like, because I think sometimes if we don't explicitly name that bidirectional relationship, that interaction of environment and person, the idea of this is about a goodness of fit for that person in different environments with different people like that, if that frame was not explicitly named for many brains, they don't have it. And so they move through the world thinking that they really are told explicitly. I mean, a lot of implicit, but explicitly, like, this is how we do the thing. This is how you apply for a job. This is how you interview. Like, this is how you show up. This is how you sit still in your classroom. This is how you line up in kindergarten. Like, it's one way. As opposed to this, like the idea we talk a lot at Brain Club about the double empathy problem, where, you know, like it's not that there's like one correct way to communicate. It's about, it's this relationship of, this mismatch of perspective taking, way of seeing the world, communication style. And like, that's where the breakdowns happen.
I think it's very important to recognize that it's okay for it not to be the right fit.
And applies to really everything that so it can apply to work relationships, it can friendships, romantic partnerships. It's like, it's everything. It's okay, especially because as people change over the course of their life, they need different things.
Exactly. I think it's less about, can I do the job? Did I do the job? Was I good at the job? And more about the fit, which is half you and half the context and how you're supported in it.
Yeah, and because a person changes over time, organizations change over time too, and that like divergence is okay. And I think that then like we bring in elements of, of abandonment and like attachment issues that come into work, and rejection sensitive dysphoria. I need to tell my employer that it's time for me to go. Oh, like how dare you? Just like all this stuff that really then someone goes off into their world, and these experiences, I think, stay in people's nervous systems, and they go into even healthy work environments, and they really have trauma physiology.
I think that if you're looking for a job, if you're in a current job and you're not happy, somehow you need to find your voice, even if you need someone to advocate for you, to step in and say, hey, can you use the language that I need for my employer so they understand what I need? Because people don't need to be getting fired because they're standing up for themselves.
I certainly think that there's ways that employers can be sensitive to a variety of stressors and sort of, do this universal design thing, but it still doesn't get away from the power imbalance.
There are people who they are working, but they're being harmed, like actively harmed at their places of employment. And they, it's like a privilege to be able to say, like, I'm going to look at what do I want to do with my life? Like the idea of vision casting is like such a higher level brain thing when you're like in the trenches trying to survive. And anyway, I really would love to figure out, and maybe it's about partnering with other organizations. Like All Brains Belong is like a little startup nonprofit. Like we can't hire all of our patients to do stuff and like make enough money to support themselves, enough to leave the terrible jobs where they're being discriminated against and traumatized all day long.
Out of that, but I think it comes with relationships. It's about how can we collaborate? How can we figure out where are the points that we really meet together, right? Where is those intersectionalities that we can support each other? Where are those crossovers? And it's about brainstorming, right? No pun intended, of like really coming together, having that think tank to come together to see more of what's possible, because exactly what you said is like, now we're not paying Anna anymore. That money is coming from a variety of other different places, and that's what we can do, is we can leverage our relationships and connections with the resources that all of us have when we come together and we're really willing to make that commitment to each other. So I think that's what's most important.
First off, thank you so much to all of our panelists. Such wisdom there.
Hold on, we're having some
Scroll up
technical difficulties.
to
I lost my browser. I couldn't stop myself from talking. Thank you. Put back our slide. Thank our panelists. Thank you again to Connie, Jason, Sarah, Sheila, Teo, and Summer for, I think, a truly brilliant and insightful panel. I would love to hear from folks either out loud or in the chat. What are you taking away from this panel? What stands out to you? Jessica says, feeling very validated. Michelle's noting maybe some geographic culture differences. Yeah, Bruno's bringing up trigger from work trauma. And there's so many people who have had, significant relational trauma in work and the way that folks have been treated and the way that systems treat people and the way that, especially growing up, as you know, as we heard through the panel, growing up with messages around, you know, your value comes from what you produce and your value comes from what you achieve, or all of these different things that are just so harmful. Michelle says, compromising my needs at work is wearing me out. Yeah. And like, first step is to acknowledge that. Is to acknowledge that it's not that there's something wrong with me, it's that I have needs and they're not being met. Jessica's noting about maybe some differences in work culture. Martha says, I was underemployed in low-paying clerical work all my life, but I'm thankful I was able to work full-time, white-knuckled through it until retirement. So hard. Erin says, learning to separate work from my identity. I am more than my work position. Love that. Absolutely. So Paul, you're talking about messages that you received from your dad. The world is about dollars and cents. Yeah, I think we get these messages and they stay with us. Molly says, acknowledging that your role in a job or organization or friendships can change over time. We don't need to stick with someone or a job if it doesn't serve you anymore. Just let it go and good things will come your way. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, also recognizing that it is absolutely, you know, it may not be safe for to leave a relationship or to leave a job because of context and the ability to meet basic needs, for example. And so that's just also recognizing the realities of that for many people. Sierra.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I wanted to add to that, Molly, that I think that when that framework is feasible, and doable, I think it can take a lot of the pressure off of, oh, I don't have to like be all or nothing. I don't have to totally leave this job or be all completely head in and burnt out in this job. There can be an in between. Maybe I still want to stay with the organization, but I'm going to switch to a different role or take a step back or find a role that meets my access needs better. And like you said, Mo, that's definitely not always feasible and not safe for everyone, but when it works, it can it really helps feel a lot less stuck in burnout, I think.
Absolutely. And Bruno's pointing out, imagine how work culture would change if we had universal basic income and universal health care that is not tied to a job. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for many people, the reality is that situations that are not working, they stay in them because they have to for the time being. And I still think it can be impactful to like make that shift in your mind. It's not me. I'm not broken. I'm being thwarted by my environment. I think that can, even in your own mind, have an impact. And I think surrounding ourselves with other people who get it, who, you know, we can show up and be authentic with and be in relationships and situations where we do have our access needs met, and that hopefully making changes in other realms of one's life can make a difference. And so with that, thank you. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Thank you again to all of our panelists. And we look forward to seeing you next week for our monthly book chat. So we look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everybody. Have a good week. Bye.